WOLFPACK. It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, RotoStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves here with your preseason week 1 rankings update, recapping all the action, snap counts, preseason trends, rookies we saw emerge, so much good stuff. Now, again, I know you got to preface it that it's preseason. Don't overreact. Don't do anything too crazy. I get all that. I'm 100% with you. You can't be too reactionary here. It's 1 week in the preseason. I get it. Still, if you're not using all the data at your disposal, you're also being a fool. And I think there is tons of actionable stuff with snaps with the starters and different things of that we can observe, that we can take away. So let me bring on in my big board. We'll go position by position like we do. We'll do this every week. In fact, I'm starting to think we might need to do it multiple times a week after each round of the preseason game, just to make sure you have the most updated rankings throughout. So let's get this on in here. I'm going to capture everything for you. Of course, any questions you guys have, let me know. But let's dive in, Wolfpack. And I'm going to start with the rookie QBs. I'm going to start with my 2 guys that I've been raving about all offseason that we got to continue to rave about. That's Trey Lance and Justin Fields, flashing their league-winning upside. As you can see, I already bumped these guys into pretty expensive range. I am going to be bumping Trey Lance above Justin Fields, and not really based on anything that happened this weekend, but let's talk about their performances. Fields starts the game, few boring drives, doesn't look like he's fully up to task there, but then has a great second half. Finally gets comfortable, goes 11 for 13 from his 4th drive on, 130 yards and a score. More importantly, flashing that Konami upside, 30 yards on the ground, including an 8-yard TD run. That's what we need to see, is the running ability, getting himself comfortable. I'm not going to overreact to him. His weapons weren't really open. Nobody was getting separation. He didn't look comfortable. Getting the jitters out. I'm okay with that. He showed everything we want to see. He racked up 18 fantasy points in a quarter. That's what you need to know. That's what you need to see. And Trey Lance, similarly, 80-yard bomb touchdown. We're talking about the Mahomes of this year, guys. Look at the situation. Brilliant play caller, just like Mahomes has over there with Andy Reid. We got Kyle Shanahan, more brilliant with the run game than the pass game. I get it, but that's why you love Trey Lance with all the option runs. But it's also the arm, the cannon arm. We saw Pat Mahomes rope those ones when he was first coming into his play as a sophomore in the preseason, and people didn't react enough. The weaponry around him, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, he's got everything. The play caller, the weapons, the natural arm, and even more so than Mahomes, the legs. This guy, as soon as he takes over, Trey Lance is going to be a monster. I absolutely believe that. So I'm not leaving any drafts without having at least one of those guys, particularly if I can get 2 of them, even better. Whether I take a quarterback early and have like Justin Herbert, whether I wait and take like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, Matt Ryan late and get something safe, I'm taking these 2 guys in every single league, at least one of the 2. Ideally, it's Lance. Fields comes a little bit cheaper, but they showed everything I wanted to see as rookies so far and cannot wait to continue to watch them throughout the preseason. Now, other rookie QBs, they're not going to really move too much on the big board here, but I did want to note they all look pretty dang comfortable, which I love to see. Trevor Lawrence, 6 for 9, 71, bunch of nice-looking throws, composed. We'll talk about his number 1 target a little bit later. That is more important than his own performance. Marvin Jones, sneaky little update there. Zach Wilson also looking great. Completes 67% of his passes, 7 yards per pass attempt. Saleh complimenting the way he played on 3rd downs, keeping his eyes down the field. Looks comfortable. We saw Mac Jones with the Pats looking nice in his debut. Sure, he didn't go too deep. 4.6 yards per attempt, nothing special. But, man, he had 2 great times where he pushed the ball down the field. He stood and looked posed in the pocket, nice and composed, ultimately completed over 70% of his throws. All 3 of those guys, again, nothing significant happening in the rankings, but in terms of significant storylines we have to monitor from preseason, that one was crucial, that all 3 of these guys look like they belong, maybe more so for the weapons around them, but still very important. Now, I do have to note, unfortunately, that Jalen Hurts struggles. I already bumped him down, so you can see there he's at quarterback 12 there. I'm getting nervous this guy might not open the season as the starter for a few reasons. One, obviously, the Deshaun Watson rumors continue to circulate. 2, he did not look good. And I know he's not going to get benched off this one game of action. They're not going to go suddenly to turn to Joe Flacco, who did look great, by the way. But he goes 3 for 7, 54 yards. Why is that concerning? Well, The big rub on him has been his accuracy. The fact that he completed under 54% of his throws last year and comes in and has less than 50% in his first action is not what you want to see. They left him out there quite some time too, and he didn't really respond too well. He desperately needs to improve on that 42% completion rate. Did not show much evidence of doing so this game. I'm not going to overreact and bump him out of potential starter because, man, this guy has ultimate Konami code upside. I mean, me and Scott Barrett talked about this guy has real, genuine league-winning potential. And so I did bump him out of this tier of the QB1s I really like and more into this tier of like the high upside QB1s with some question marks. I'd love to see him come and ball out in the next games and let me move him back here because he was right around, this Tom Brady 9-10 range for that Konami code upside. Continue to monitor him throughout the preseason. And just in case it helps you know, his targets went 3 to Ertz, 1 to Goddard, 1 to Rager, and 1 to Quez Watkins, who he overthrew. And then we watched Joe Flacco nail him on a completion a little bit later. So just keep that in mind. Another one that is more so to note than to do anything too drastic, but that's Drew Lock outplaying Teddy Bridgewater. So, maybe you can bump him up here. He looks like he might be entering the season as a starter, and he looks like he might be a little bit reborn. The guy goes 5 for 7. Whew. That's probably the most accurate we'll ever see Drew Lock. 5 for 7. But it was more so the deep shots. 151, 2 TDs, no interceptions, no problem pushing the ball down the field, connecting with KJ Hamler, who looks reborn on that 80-yard touchdown. Sure, he only played 17 snaps and then hands over the reins, and that's kind of what you want to see. If this is a competition, Bridgewater looked okay too, 7 for 8, 74 and 1 TD. And in general, I guess just how explosive the Broncos offense looked, putting up 33 points. Again, preseason, I'll keep saying that over and over, but that would go a huge way to Javonte Williams, to Jerry Jeudy, to Cortland Sutton, if these quarterbacks can at least be competent. Never mind look explosive like this. So I thought that was a huge positive, especially for Drew Lock, you got to enjoy rooting for the guy. And that was really it at quarterback because most quarterbacks don't play anything meaningful. But I thought those stories were important. Let me know your thoughts. And, of course, as you guys have questions, keep them coming in. I'm going to be ripping through these updates and then get to everything that you guys got. Now, running back, I thought the most important storyline, it's just painful for me to say this one, and that's Myles Gaskin. Starting behind Malcolm Brown? Are we kidding here? Then today comes out, the coach wants a 3-headed nightmare committee. He wants to keep defenses guessing, and we don't know which one's going to start on a week-to-week basis. And, oh, my God, I want nothing to do with it. I like Gaskin. He looked way better. I mean, Malcolm Brown did nothing on his carries. What did it even amount to? Like 5 carries for 6 yards? It was pathetic. It was plodding. It was gross. But that doesn't really matter when he got the start. 8 yards on 9 carries. Sorry, I gave him too much credit there. Disgusting. But you got to bump down Gaskin with this concerning usage. No doubt about it. So I'm finding Gaskin here. Yeah, I had him right in this tier above Miles Sanders. God, that's going to look horrible. He can't be above any of these guys right now. I think you can see 12-spot drop, 13-spot drop here. Now, if he comes and continues to dominate, he looked the best. I think he is the best, but still, it's just very, very concerning. Definitely, maybe the biggest storyline of the weekend was him not getting the start, him playing into the second quarter, then comes out, they want a 3-headed nightmare. Didn't like any of that. One guy, I'm going to move a little bit here. That's Antonio Gibson. The stat line looks nice. Tons of touches, tons of usage, including 2 catches all over the place. The final stat line, let me just pull it up here, looks really, really good with Gibson. The biggest part, though, is that he continued to come off the field on 3rd downs. J.D. McKissic trots right back out there. And this, again, the high usage, when you see 9 touches, you're like, oh, man, he's a workhorse. The thing that made like McCaffrey a couple seasons ago, and a comparison you're often hearing drawn right now, is he didn't leave the field ever. Gibson's leaving the field. He even left the field in short yardage for Peyton Barber again. And so I like that he saw more in receiving work, but it wasn't anything special. So I'm bumping him down to 11. I can't take Saquon Barkley. In fact, Saquon Barkley, off the PUP looking healthy, I'm going to continue to bump him up. It's just concerning. So you bump him down to 11 here, maybe below Mixon if this continues. Not overly concerning. Still love him in round 2, but not what I was hoping to see by any means for Antonio Gibson. Another gross backfield was the Jags this weekend. Oh, the last thing you heard the rumblings, right, earlier in the preseason where they drafted Travis Etienne and they talked about using all 3 backs. And you're like, okay, good one. That's funny, Herb. Continue to make your comments here. Oh, God. It actually was. Carlos Hyde got in for 3 snaps. Travis Etienne played 5. James Robinson played 7. It'd be one thing if it was just Robinson and Etienne. They're both talented. They can squeeze enough out. But if Hyde's really going to be sneaking in there with the first team, got a target over Etienne. I mean, what are we doing, Jaguars? What are we doing? So that's not good. Simply put, like, you don't want to see that. So let me go here to these backs. I mean, James Robinson, somebody I've been elevating. I'm going to bump him down below Chase Edmonds. I still think he has high upside, but I'm bumping him down. I'm bumping down Etienne to this tier. I'm not a fan. I don't like what I'm seeing there. He'll get some receiving work, but a 3-headed nightmare is never good. So if Hyde's going to continue to be involved, you have to adjust. You have to adjust for that. One preseason game, again, I'm going to keep reiterating that, but one preseason game, the fact that he's in there for 3 snaps, you're not just peppering your rookie trying to get his feet under him. You hate to see that involvement. Disgusting stuff. Let me know if you think I'm psycho to overreacting to that, but I think it's big news. And a guy that a lot of people would be taking after Travis Etienne is Damian Harris, who I already bumped up. I'm going to bump him up just a little bit more. I'm a huge fan of this guy. He looked real good in his action, showing burst, showing wiggle, getting through the hole. Loved it all. And he played all the early down snaps. Now, James White's involved, so that's a little bit of a concern. In fact, that's a reason to bump up James White. 3 targets, led the way, the first team offense. So like you're looking for some usable PPR value. You got your guy late here, James White. Could definitely carve out himself a role, especially if Mac Jones, again, as we said, looked good. Even better for James White if he can take over. But I love what I saw from Damian Harris, even more so if he can take over that role. If Mac Jones wins, there's higher goal line equity after Cam Newton was top 5 among all positions in goal line attempts. So Damian Harris, a definite riser in my opinion. Looked good, looked like he is the clear go-to guy. Stoney didn't touch the field until the second. And Ramondre Stevenson looked great, had that awesome run towards the end, but that was against third stringers. I'm not overreacting yet to that. Another running back that's a little bit concerning here, Michael Carter. Now, I'm not going to freak out and drop this guy, 10 different spots, right? But he played behind Ty Johnson. Like Tevin Coleman doesn't play. You're like, okay, we're going to get to see a good look at Michael Carter. No, Ty Johnson plays first, the first kayak, and he outcarries him. Why? I don't know, but Johnson gets 9, turns into 33 yards. Carter gets 7, 22 yards. Just a gross committee, and I think a reminder of how this backfield's going to operate, even if Carter's the better option, which he didn't look like this time around. So I think he also gets that little dreaded bump down a tier. Maybe the bottom. No, he can't belong in this tier anymore. Like that's the flexes that I'm excited about, and we're going to talk about another guy in a second. I'm going to bump into the next tier. Hell, I think Harris might belong. This tier is kind of morphing into each other in a way. But Javonte Williams, as you can see here, getting that bump up. I call him a tasty man here. That vision, the cutting, he just showed it all. It was only 29 yards on 7 carries, had a touchdown called back, but he just looked good. He was in for 10 of 17 snaps with the first team, highly worked in those snaps. And again, it's just what your eyeballs see, a genuine bona fide potential workhorse. We know Pat Shurmur loves his bell cows. At some point, he's going to become one. We find out that Melvin Gordon's dealing with a groin injury. No idea yet how serious that might be. But I think on that note, you got to bump Melvin Gordon down a little bit, at least behind James Conner. Oop, I did not mean to do that. Let's get this tier back here. I just love everything. So this kind of becomes like Travis versus Javonte. It's been a big debate this year. Give me Javonte. I'm confident at some point this guy will be a 3-down horse, whereas I don't know if Etienne's going to get out of a 3-headed nightmare. So love what I saw Javonte Williams doing this week. Another guy that needs a big bump up, and that's in respect also David Johnson gets the bump down, but Phillip Lindsay plays 8 snaps with the starters compared to 2 for David Johnson, so 10 total snaps, and Phillip Lindsay is the one starting there. I've always loved this guy. I think Phillip Lindsay's always been kind of a sneaky monster there. They've already listed David Johnson as the 3rd string starter on their depth chart, and everyone's like, okay, it's just preseason, you don't overreact. I get that. I don't either. I know. But then you see down the field that the fact that he played significantly behind Lindsay, Ingram didn't even play, and still David Johnson only mustered 2 snaps with the first team. And it's not like Lindsay looked great or did anything crazy. It's just the fact that he was out there ahead of David Johnson. He still displayed his fiery little burst. I like Lindsay. I think Lindsay's a very good player who's long been undervalued. Gets 14 yards on his 5 carries. Again, nothing special. But he outsnapped him and outcarried him. David Johnson seeing just 1 carry the entire night, playing two behind. Could be one of the worst teams in football. So, I'll look back at this Lindsay ranking. I'm just going to get, David Johnson out of your radar. We're not drafting him. We never were drafting him at his price. It was ridiculous. I've always advocated avoiding it. But now even more so. I'm going to bump this tier, I think here, because Lindsay, yes, the starter, but still the worst backfield in the league. That's pretty much all you need to know there, how gross that backfield's going to be. Now we got the Bucs running backs looking nice and disgusting, per usual. All 3 of them saw snaps with the starters. Ronald Jones gets to the line of scrimmage. That's his contributions on the night. Thanks, Ronald. We got a nice plotting 2 carries from Leonard Fournette for 2 yards? Gross. Nothing useful there. As I've said all offseason, the one you want is Gio Bernard. He plays all the 3rd down snaps this game, catches both his targets, one coming from Brady for 16 yards. He's going to be the only one on a week-to-week basis where you know what you're going to get. You know you're getting that 3rd down work. I like Gio a lot as a late-round sleeper. I don't know that I'm going to bump him above the other 2 just in case one gets hurt or one emerges. Like, Ronald Jones is a really good runner. I hope he takes over. But that's looking like they're going to nibble each other's cheese, whereas Bernard is going to have that clear 3rd down work, similar to James White. Loving those types of guys in like DraftKings best ball, where if you go a couple running backs early, then you avoid the position around like 13, you're getting yourself still some usable potential volume there late from guys like James White, Gio Bernard, J.D. McKissic playing those 3rd downs. All interesting stuff for sure. Another late round sleeper that we've talked about with, what's his name? Justin Boone came on here and called this guy potentially the next Alvin Kamara. That's Darrington Evans. He was the guy with Derrick Henry not playing in this game. We saw Evans rack up 8 of the 10 first-team snaps, rips off a 15-yard scamper, 26 yards on 4 carries, just the guy. And they've already talked about bumping his catches up and keeping him involved as their Kamara light, quote unquote. But it's clear that if anything ever happens to Henry, that Evans is actually that handcuff. There was kind of speculation whether it be him, Jeremy McNichols, who barely touched the field. It's Darrington Evans. Now, he did pick up a knee injury, but he's listed as day-to-day. He should be fine. That has been a concern, though. So I do think you got to monitor that with him. But ultimately, he was the clear running back 2. And that's going to be kind of a trend with this next list that we go through is all about running back 2s. But before we do that, let's talk about a running back 1. That's Darrell Henderson. The Rams are, quote unquote, all in on Darrell Henderson. So we have him at 21. I think he's getting closer to this tier of backs than this tier. I'm bumping him above Mike Davis. And consider this, that the Rams, just as a reminder, all 4 years under Sean McVay were top 10 in rushing touchdowns. 3 out of the 4 were top in rushing yardage. Just one of those schemes that breeds running back success, all about marrying the run and pass. They need a good run game presence to do so, and they think it's going to be Henderson who does it. The fact that he didn't play, and that'll be a trend with a few people on this riser list, people who didn't play, is sometimes more suggestive than the people who do, because it shows their standing with the team and the way they're viewed. That was Henderson. And right after the game was over, they said they're all in on this guy. He's not going to see a down in the preseason. They want him to be the workhorse. He came in the perfect zone blocking scheme in Memphis. We haven't seen it fully translate, but the upside is there. If anyone in this like fourth round range, fourth, fifth, sixth, that running back dead zone, they call it, range is going to explode, to me, it's going to be Darrell Henderson. No doubt about that. But behind him, and now talking about clear running back twos, was Xavier Jones. He plays 9 of 14 first-team snaps, sees 8 touches on that, a significantly high usage rate there. And he was just significantly better than Jake Funk. They split time, and Xavier Jones gains 21 yards on his 7 carries. It's not great. 6 yards on his 2 catches. So, again, very inefficient. But Jake Funk was that much worse. 12 yards on his 5 attempts. It looked to me like Xavier Jones is the better player, is the first man up. Great value in drafts right now as a late round bargain. I already am pretty high on him. Let's go to the rankings and just kind of double check where I have Xavier Jones. So I already have him here right in this range, and we'll be probably condensing this tier into more upside number 2s in a little bit. Trey Sermon, though, a much higher upside number 2. It was very clear if anything happens to Mostert, a sports car who often is injured, that Trey Sermon's going to be the next man up. Sees 11 touches. Wasn't, again, overly efficient, but racked up a nice 40 total yards on his 11 touches, 10 of 12 snaps with the first team. Stayed in there, got a little extra work after that. He was the guy. He was the absolute guy. And Mostert has those nagging injuries always pop up. I want to see a better Trey Sermon. Like, he didn't look that great, but I like that he was the only man up in Mostert's absence. So I thought that was of note. And I think, I already am pretty high on him, but Etienne versus Sermon is becoming a debate for me, given that concerning situation over there with the 49ers. I also think Boston Scott needs a bit of an upgrade. I don't even know if I have him ranked here, but it was very clear he was the guy you want, not Kenneth Gainwell, who plays 0 snaps with the first team. Let me bump up Ty Johnson, as we said, too. The starter looked better than Carter. Like, he deserves definite into this, like, upside backup tier. I'm going to bump A.J. Dillon into the very, very high upside backup tier over there. But Ty Johnson needs to bump up, but also Boston Scott plays, all the first team snaps with Jordan Howard with 0 Kenny Gainwell action. They're saying in camp, as we talked about last week in our Sanders fall, Boston Scott rise. It's been nearly an even split between the two with first team work, just as another PPR sleeper. There's these guys emerging that you really got to keep note of. He's one of them. I think Devin Singletary, too, another riser that I might even have above the Bucks guys. Let's put him in like a sandwich there between them. He looked really good throughout that game, racking up 42 yards on his 8 touches, a couple receptions in there, touchdown receiving-wise. He looked really, really good in that action. We've already mentioned Quadri Allison as a number 2. I think that became even more apparent. One, he didn't play at all because the team was resting him. Tells you he was standing with the team, as we've said with other players. But 2, Javian Hawkins just looked like garbage. And I know our guy Thor loves him. I liked him too. I like the speed element he brings, and maybe, just maybe, that'll come into play at some point. But this week was not that week for it to come into play, folks. He gets 2 carries for 4 yards, only 6 yards after contact. Just gross stuff. 6 touches, 5 carries, and 2. Yeah, exactly. 5 carries, 2 yards. So I actually mixed that up. Sole reception, just as many receiving yards, 2 more yards. Just nothing efficient, exciting about any of that. But someone who did look pretty efficient and pretty exciting, and I'm going to be bumping up here in a second, is Anthony McFarland. 9 carries, 34 yards and a TD, 3 first downs and that touchdown as well. Moving the chains, highly involved. This is a guy that led Graham Barfield's yards created not too long ago, a few seasons. And he's largely forgotten. As you can see, I had him at 88. Definitely gets a bump up here. We mentioned Malcolm Brown starting, like, gross, but starting running back's a starting running back. So I think he belongs, in this tier. We'll reorganize these guys. I'm giving you kind of the notes here. But McFarland, I think it's going to be the Najee show. 70 to 80% of the work's going to go to Najee. But if tragedy befalls them, McFarland could end up being a steal in drafts and deep leagues, worth a late round roster, spot, little plunge there. Also, I'm a little more intrigued from the backup perspective because I think he could just outright take the job much more than McFarland never has that shot, right? Potentially Davis could falter. We've seen him wear down with work, but I did like that. Another running back that was not even on my radar at all coming this season, even though I really like this player, is Justin Jackson. Is he even in here? No, he's not. So he's going to be the single biggest riser because of not playing. But there's a lot of reports I'm going to run you through with Justin Jackson here while I add him, and then we'll see where he lands in the rankings. So Justin Jackson doesn't play because he is the clear number 2 starter. They believe, according to Jonathan Jones of CBS, Justin Jackson has a stranglehold on the number 2 job. He's taking the higher up reps at training camp compared to his other people. Second in command behind Austin Eckler. Looking good, looking explosive by being second in command. And then Brandon Staley comes out and says, we want to use a variety of running backs in 2021. We want to use a variety of running backs, and the number 2 man up is Justin Jackson. Tells me this guy is going to have a very meaningful role in addition to being a very, very valuable handcuff, because I think we all expect this offense to be top 7. At least I sure do, potentially top 5 in the league with Justin Herbert. And if something ever happened to Austin Eckler, we know Justin Jackson has 3 down skill sets. I've always liked him. He's looked pretty efficient whenever used. I like him. Now, that all being said, Larry Roundtree, the backup, looked pretty good in his attempts in the preseason. They're saying he's been the next man up beyond Justin Jackson, Roundtree. And so what did he do over this? Doesn't disappoint. Nice 63 yards on 8 carries, 25-yard burst, nice juke, catches the ball, almost gets all the way to the end zone, just barely misses breaking a tackle. So this guy could round out rosters as well if he continues to impress. So I'm going to add him into here as well, just so it's like a name to monitor in deep leagues, and especially in Dynasty. I think he's really pushing and threatening with Josh Kelly for that number 3 role. But let's see where Justin Jackson, this just Charger situation in general, ends up. I'm going to bump Justin Jackson to this tier. I think he belongs again, what's the point of drafting David Johnson this year? There's none. There's nothing that's going to ever come useful from David Johnson. So he'll belong in this tier of what's quickly emerging as upside number 2s should anything happen. I will need to reorganize this, including Jerick McKinnon, who, if I'm looking for an upside number 2, where better to target than the Chiefs, right? Give you that all day. 5 touches, 2 receptions, 40 yards from scrimmage, really involved, but more so just showing a burst we didn't really see last year. He comes out and says after the game, this is the first time I felt healthy in years. So this is definitely something to monitor, is a newfound McKinnon getting his burst. Nate Taylor came on our podcast last week talking about how he's dazzling in camp, running routes no one else can really do at the position, going deep over the shoulder. Mahomes has called this guy a playmaker. Andy Reid has cited his playmaking abilities and said this guy's great as a pass catcher. So I think he has to rise significantly as well. But again, nobody rising more than Justin Jackson, who wasn't really even on my radar and now becomes one of those late round running backs. I'm loving the approach in DraftKings to best ball right now of 2 running backs similar to Underdog too, wherever you want to play. Get a couple stallions early, load up on receivers for your next 8 picks. 2 running backs, 8 receivers. I'm fine with that. And we're going to go into receivers next. And then stash some of these guys, these Jerick McKinnons, Boston Scotts, Justin Jacksons. Nobody's drafting these guys, these backups that have just as much buzz as anybody else in front of them. They're going undrafted. And I think at least 1 or 2, Quadri Olson never gets drafted. Anthony McFarland never gets drafted. Darrington Evans, very rarely, very late if he gets drafted at all. All guys that you can start to target late in these drafts. Let us now move on over to wide receiver and get into some keynotes from here. Looks like we got some of the legends in the comments here. The questions, keep them coming in, guys, as always. I will answer any and everything that comes in. My first big riser, though, has to be Marquez Callaway. We've already talked about him many times in the last week or so, given that he is the quote-unquote breakout star of camp, taking command of the lead dog in this offense, looking so good that they are confident they can live without Michael Thomas. And the hype has been insane on this guy. What does he do in his first series of action? Sees 4 targets, hauls in 3 of them for 61 yards, a 15.8 average depth of target ADOT. Amazing. I mean, that is exactly what you want to see, is the hype then translate to this alpha role being used deep, being used intermediate, screen. He was just unique usage all over the field and looked like, at least for the better half of the season, until Mike Thomas, whatever, maybe not half, however long Mike Thomas is out, you're going to be able to count on Marquez Callaway. He played all 20 first-team snaps. Now also, little Jordan Humphrey played 18 snaps, another name to just keep really down there deep. But let's look at where Marquez goes first, and then we'll add him. See, I already bumped him up so high. It's like I struggle to take him too much higher. I am going to bump up Gallup with this recent news that they're interchangeable, him and CeeDee Lamb and Cooper, moving him all over the place. I like that. But yeah, Callaway, he belongs in this tier. I mean, he's the potential alpha of this tier, so I'm bumping him up to here is where I would say 47. Now, you'll probably be able to give him later, but I'm all in on this potential breakout here for Marquez Callaway. Another guy that will be joining that tier, that's Marvin Jones. And this is one of those ones that's very easy for me to make a big adjustment on because I love the player. I've always loved Marvin Jones. I think the talent has always been great. I just didn't know where he was going to fit in this offense with Chark, with Chenault. But now we know. Potentially the alpha. 4 targets, 3 receptions, 52 yards, wins 2 of 2 contested balls. Right where he left off, he's always been so dominant on those jump ball looks. And we see it yet again. So I'm bumping him in here. Now, Terrace Marshall, there's going to be some guys joining this tier in a little bit. But I think Marvin Jones absolutely belongs with some of these upside plays. We haven't seen Curtis Samuel at camp. I'll bump him over him. Will Fuller, does he exist anymore? Get out of here. Like, give me Marvin Jones, target hog action, right up there with the Marquezes. I'm into this. I'm really into this. This next section is going to be kind of like the alphas we didn't know existed. One of them being potentially Corey Davis. You couldn't be higher on Elijah Moore than I am, right? Like I've been all in on Elijah Moore. You can see right here, I have him at 39. So of these guys, of these big performances, like we do have to preface it that Marvin Jones didn't have DJ Chark out there and Elijah Moore wasn't out there for Corey Davis. But let's just kind of fix this tier first of all. Those guys are going to be in this tier. Corey Davis, though, 4 targets from Zach Wilson, all the first-team snaps, lead the first team in targets there. He does okay with them. Doesn't do anything like, blowing away. 2 receptions, 18 yards, whatever. But he was every time he ran a route, like he was getting peppered. So I like that. I like that with him. I've never been a Davis guy, though, so I'm not going to overreact because I do think that would not be the case if Elijah Moore is out there, and I'm looking forward to seeing them play together. Another guy who I've been speculating is going to be the alpha of his offense, and it sure looked like that was the case, is Tyrell Williams. He sees 4 targets, catches 2 of them for 30 yards, 3.00 yards per route run. That looks nice. All of them from Jared Goff, mind you, too. I should say that right from the top. Their number 1 quarterback slinging it to him. This is a team that's going to have to chuck early, often, always. And so I'm kind of looking, who's going to emerge between Perriman and Amonte Brown. Well, Amonte Brown did not play 2 receiver sets. He only came in when he was in the slot. Yeah, he's reliable. Yeah, he's looked nice. Still, Tyrell Williams is definitely emerging as a potential alpha of this offense that's going to have to chuck. So I think that is an important one to note. Man, I'm looking at this tier. I'm like, all these guys, I see a lot of guys I'm going to be rising. So as I adjust these, of course, I'll take a little look at them and really make sure I feel good about them. These are just kind of the gut reactions as we talk. And I'll sift through them and there's going to be a lot of tier reorganization today as we see some of these roles emerging. But that was certainly a note. Now, someone in this tier that I don't want to have to bump down, but how can you not after this preseason? Mecole Hardman. Is he going to be fool's gold again? We were told by my man Nate Taylor, this is the number 2. He looks like he's taken the step. The coaching staff believes in him. I think we're deceived, folks. 5 of 11 first-team snaps. Demarcus Robinson plays 10. Outsnapped by Byron Pringle by a snap. 0% of the snaps in 2 receiver sets. I think that's what we really wanted to see, right? Is who's the number 2 receiver? Well, that was Robinson and Pringle. Pringle, the one being the one that catches the touchdown here. That's pretty discouraging. Even if he's looking better in camp, if he can't beat these guys out, he has all the talent in the world. But until further notice, I can't take him over some of these sleepers that I really like. No. And speaking of some of those sleepers, the number one, Mr. Terrace Marshall, ladies and gentlemen. What an NFL debut. Now, like a lot of these, no DJ Moore, no Robbie Anderson. Easy to be the top target when those 2 hogs are off the field. Not going to be the top target when those 2 are there. Still, in his audition, lining up all over the place. Outside in the slot, inside the wide receiver and tight end in another play. Just in, out, all over the place. 15 to 16 offensive snaps to start the game. The only 2 he misses is after he catches a 60-yard, rather, not 50, 60-yard bomb. This guy was all over the place, led the team in targets, in yardage, ultimately ends up putting up 88 yards, 14.8 average depth of target. He knows Joe Brady. This is his guy from LSU, and Joe Brady's already moving him all over the place. I wouldn't be shocked if he beats either of Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore this year in fantasy points. Might take an injury. Might not. This is the guy that was handpicked by the coaching staff, not DJ Moore. And if anything, this is another reason to be concerned about DJ Moore, that Marshall played so much in the slot and dominated. He is becoming quickly one of my favorite values in fantasy. Another wide receiver who didn't put up the stats, but it was more so just what was going on with him. That's Jalen Waddle. He was also going inside, outside, 2 receiver slats outside, 3 receiver slats getting kicked into the slot. You love to see that type of usage, especially with everybody else injured around him. Now, he didn't do anything, and I'm already got him pretty high here, so I'm not going to send him up higher. I am going to bump down DJ Chark, though, just a little bit, given how good Marvin Jones looked. Unfair, maybe, because he wasn't going to be able to on the field and stake the claim himself, but still. But yeah, Waddle, every down receiver usage, looks like he could really be, I want to see him now produce, but I like Tua. He's pushing it a little more aggressively. I'm excited to see what Waddle does once we see him used. The thing is, though, do you bump him or Terrace Marshall higher? Because both are being used creatively. One's actually thriving. I don't know. That's a tricky one. I do know, though, somebody that's going to be getting bumped up big is Rondale Moore. 39 yards on 5 touches, just early and often peppering. All about it. Unlike the other guys, though, I am a little worried that nobody else was on the field. Christian Kirk was, I guess, but you can't pick and choose. He could really. He's thick. He's well built. He's so explosive. He looks like he's running at a speed different than everybody else out there. Maybe this is, at least at minimum, he's now risen clearly above Isabella, clearly above any Keyshawn Johnson, some of these nobodies, and he's going to get his stuff drawn up for him. Don't know that there's enough to go around for him to be truly viable. Probably keep him in a tier below these other ones. But still, you have to note them drawing up the plays and how explosive he looked. He's going to be involved, and he's become one of those guys you want in best ball for sure. Another guy worth mentioning, Josh Palmer. I don't even know if I have him in my read rank. Nope, I don't. But there's a clear battle going on now for wide receiver 3 duties behind Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And Justin Palmer is rapidly – where is he? Palmer. Oh, Josh Palmer. Why I call him Justin? It says it on the screen here. Josh Palmer sees 6 targets and gets – how many of them hauled in? 6. 6 for 6. Nothing crazy in terms of how much yardage he racked up, 36, I think it was, Palmer. Let me just double check that. 36, yep, so 6 yards a catch. But got open at will, caught everything thrown his way, and is potentially the 3rd receiver in an offense we think could be the top 5 in the league, one of the more explosive units coming up. We know Keenan Allen and Mike Williams have their injury concerns. I think Josh Palmer is somebody, especially with late round best ball dart throws, that could be doing some damage here. So let's bump him in I like Gabriel Davis still, but something in this range. I think he could be a very, very intriguing sleeper this year. One of those filers, one of the ones that are like rose because they didn't do anything, because they didn't play, was Ruggs and Edwards. They get that starter treatment. More shocking for Edwards, in my opinion, because he still has a lot to prove. But the fact that he didn't play tells you this team is feeling really, really good about him. Wasn't injury related at all. Brian Edwards. And so you find out afterwards too. Let me pull up the note here. The trust between Brian Edwards and QB Derek Carr is, quote, palpable at Raiders headquarters. He's running with the first team offense, as we said last week, ahead of John Brown. In the red zone, Carr has no issues throwing to Edwards' shoulders and letting him out-muscle the corner. Remember, this is a Carr who compared Brian Edwards, as hyperbolic as this is, to Devontae Adams, his college teammate, given how violently he runs his routes and attacks the ball. And Edwards was the starter last year until he got hurt, and then he just never fell back into it. I really think he's a great value at where he's going. He's going to be in this tier. Like, this tier is going to grow by a lot. Edwards is going to be in there. Jacoby Myers, played all 12 snaps. He'll be in there. There's getting to be a lot of sneaky depth at receiver, a lot of picks you can make in that round, like 10 to 15 range. You could go 5 straight receivers and get guys that have the potential to be target hogs, in my opinion. Edwards is quickly becoming one of those. I'd rather have him than Michael Thomas. I'd rather have him than Emmanuel Sanders. And these guys are going to go this tier. I do love Emmanuel Sanders, too. I cannot wait to see what he does in that Bills offense. And then just some other names to double check on. I did want to mention again, Brian Pringle caught that TD. Clearly the number 3, looking good. But some deep sleepers just to add to my list, and then we'll sprinkle them in where they go. One being Peoples-Jones. I think we added him last week. No, we did not. So Peoples-Jones, all the reports are this guy is annihilating, I believe was the adjective they used, training camp. And then he comes out, Peoples-Jones, and shows why he's getting this buzz. Nice little toe-dragging reception while falling down. A 15-yard connection from Case Keenum moving the sticks. Kind of was the guy with both Landry and Beckham out. Now, of course, he'll be behind those guys if and when the season starts. But 5 targets, 3 receptions, 26 yards, 45.5% threat rate. He's looking good. The degree of difficulty on those catches was what's more illuminating to me. So I like Peoples-Jones as a last-round dart throw. I think KJ Hamler, I don't know if I have him in my rankings. Nope. That deep speed was so real on that 80-yard touchdown. A broken play, he gets open. Sure, good for him. But you got to note those things. He was also getting used, his final stat line wasn't just that deep ball. He had that 80-yard touchdown, which was nice, but he also caught a nice 25-yarder, 2 targets, 2 receptions, that TD. He looked good. He's got that Deshaun Jackson style speed that could really help a team out. And last but not least, and this one hasn't gotten talked about, I don't think at all, is Devin Funchess. So I'm adding those 3 guys in. We'll see where they land. I'll adjust the rankings throughout tonight. But I just want to make sure these sleepers are on your radar. Doesn't play all last year. Barely played the year before that because of injury. But he was their big receiver acquisition, Devin Funchess. And before all COVID shut down the year, he was their guy that was supposed to be their next big number 2. He did it all. Diving 16-yard catch. Short intermediate games. He was getting peppered. Ends up getting team high 6 catches on team high 8 targets for a team high 70 yards. If he continues to evolve and emerge as a starter for this Packers team, that upside could be astronomical. He's got that big body. They need somebody, especially too if something happens to Adams. Funchess is kind of that next style replacement, the big body that can kind of do it all. Certainly not in Adams, not even close, but in terms of mimicking that, I could see him being the one that Rodgers would go to the most in an absence of Adams. So to me, it's just a last round guy that you now need to have on your radar for sure. So I'll bump these guys in, sprinkle the Hamler, Peoples-Jones, and Funchess up here. They're going to be above any of these guys as, now my new best ball targets in here for those last rounds. Let's wrap up here with tight end. And really, there's nothing good to report here. There's one riser, 3 fallers. So an already thin position is getting all the more thin, and all the more reason to attack Travis Kelce at the top of your round, or Darren Waller a little bit later. One of them being Adam Troutman. Oh, boy. Doesn't see a single target. There's no one to throw to in this offense right now. Troutman not only doesn't see a single target, he pass blocks on 3 of his snaps. He is so hyped. 3 of his 9 pass plays, he's in protection. That's all he did last year, too. As athletic as he is, as big body as he is, the fact they trade up for him, I get it all. I want nothing to do with him. So he's going to fall very hard alongside Anthony Firkser. Jonnu's gone. Firkser was the number 2 all last year. And yet Tommy Hudson is the first tight end in 11 personnel on the passing downs. Luke Stalker in the 21 personnel. Firkser doesn't play with anyone but the second team. What? Don't know how or why. Don't really care. I don't want either of those guys on my teams right now. So I'm gonna bump up Jonnu, who had a great great run after the catch. I'm gonna bump up Jarwin with Dalton Schultz hurt and him potentially getting there. Ebron, potentially no. I don't want these guys. Gronk plays all the snaps. First team. Austin Hooper's role potentially expanding. Give me all these guys. I want nothing to do with Troutman or Firkser. Maybe I'm overreacting, but this is all you need to know is when like a tight end's number 2 on the depth chart, tight end pass blocks on his pass plays. Nothing. I want nothing to do with them. Meanwhile, Donald Parham. I'll take freaking Parham over Firkser right now. Give me the number 2 tight end that's actually looking like a threat in camp right now instead. Another faller, though, Dallas Goedert. Zach Ertz keeps nibbling his cheese. As we said at the top, 3 targets for Ertz, 1 for Goedert. And I'm not sitting here saying I want Ertz. Yeah, he's still down here. I thought I might want him more than Firks with those 3 targets, more than Troutman. It's more so, what does this mean for Dallas Goedert? I don't want him over Herb Smith. I don't want him over Gasecki, who we're going to talk about in a second. I think those guys have actually joined this kind of tier here. Logan Thomas might have even surpassed these guys. I think it kind of looks like Logan Thomas in his own. These guys. And then maybe this. Something gross like that. I think Dawson Knox gets a little bump up here. Again, above Firkser, who's just I'm not going to take that risk. Now, if he plays all the first team snaps next week, I'll look into it. But the key here again is you're seeing tight ends come down, less and less usable options here, folks, at the position. It's just one of those things. Goddard's upside's always going to be capped if Ertz is around. We all expected him to be gone. He's always been ranked as if he's gone, and guess what? He's still there, and he's still getting targeted even more than Goddard did this last game. And last guy up that needs a bump up, as you can see, I already gave it to him. It's Mike Gesicki. Tua just peppered his tight ends again. That was the trend last year, and it's looking like it's the trend again. 6 of his 11 throws go to the tight end. I guess the concern there is that 3 of them went to Shaheen, only 3 of them went to Gesicki, and 1 went to Smythe or whatever the fuck that guy's name is. And Gesicki wasn't an every down player. That's annoying again, just like last year. But he's getting the money downs. He's getting the pepper with the targets, and he hauls in a nice 50-yarder, reminds us of his athleticism. I like it. I'm not going to take him above anyone, here. I like him right there at 12, but I think he's back into that tier of if you're my tight end 1, I'm feeling okay. I feel okay. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's my risers and fallers from preseason week 1. Again, I try not to overreact to 1 week of action But when we have snap counts, when we have route usage, we have ADOT, and we see things emerging that I think can stick, I want to point those out to you guys in order to do that. I'm going to get to all your questions now, but just reminding everyone you can find me at Roto Street Wolf if I don't get to you or you're no longer here for your question. If you're at YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, and you haven't already, it would mean the world if you like this to subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, potentially turn on notifications so you know when you're live and we can answer your questions. With that all being said, let's get on in here. I'm going to remove the big board and just talk with you guys. My opponent dropped Jamar Chase. How much fab? The end. What psycho drops Jamar Chase? The end. I think you got to spend whatever it is. Is this a dynasty? Is this what kind of league is this? But Jamar Chase is going to be a stud. Like, I know there's the reports he's coming along slow, and maybe that's what your person's overreacting to. But you got to go get him. You have to go get him. I would drop. He's the type of guy that's going to be worth all your fab. Like, you don't want to let someone else get him for free, essentially. But let me know the league's settings, indeed. Third live stream of the day, putting to work. Oh, yeah, boys and girls. I love this shit. I got 2 more weeks of summer, so I'm squeezing all the juice out until I have to get back into that classroom, baby. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. I love that you guys are here. Grinding today, Mitch, absolutely. Mr. Preble, great to see you, brother. Always a pleasure, for sure. Javonte Williams was the most impressive rookie over the weekend. So, Tim, yeah, as you saw, I had him towards the top of my list. He's only 7 carries, but you can just see when someone has it. Javonte has it. There's no doubt in my mind. He has it. Third show of the day. Indeed, it is. We're ripping. Taylor, what's up, brother? The man, the myth, the Wolf legend. Here he is in flesh for you. Great to see you, man. Are you dropping Eckler down the rankings in PPR leagues? Now, I think that's a great question, Mike. And I'm going to go over here because they're preaching this committee, right? They're saying there's going to be multiple backs involved. And I've kind of ranked Eckler like a bell cow. Like, I can't take Eckler over Saquon right now. Even though Saquon, the health concerns and all that, I can't do it. So I'm going to put Eckler down a little bit. He's still my RB9, like him, Taylor. He's back into the tier where there's like some question mark RB1s. And hell, maybe Barkley belongs in that tier. I don't know. But the fact that he's been looking as good as he has in practice, week 1's becoming so real, no one can threaten Christian McCaffrey's spot quite like Saquon can. So, yeah, I bumped him down a spot, but nothing crazy. Nothing too crazy. I had Eckler at number 6 RB in PPR. So full PPR, I would probably have him at like 6, 7. Like, he's going to be over Chubb, going to be probably over Aaron Jones, right in that range. But I'd probably have him around like 7, 8 is where I would probably have him now. Jonnu Smith is another player moving up my rankings. I like him a lot, Tim. My worry is similar to what I've talked about with some of these running backs and tight like him and Hunter Henry may just kind of eat each other's cheese. And he's also getting hurt left and right. Like, stay healthy. Belichick loves the guy. I mean, yeah, as you say, he salivates when he talks about him. He called him the best run after the catch tight end before he was on the Patriots. So he loves him. He has a clear vision how to use him. I like all that. But he also has Hunter Henry, and this isn't a quarterback like Brady in his prime that can sustain a, Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski, in my opinion. There could be 2 good tight ends, but I don't know that you're ever going to know which week it is. So top 5, a little bit is too much for me. Tell me top 12, he's a starter by the end of the year, no doubt. Like, he's got bumped up a little bit for me today. But yeah, I see that. Wolf, you're the man. So hopefully, I'm not sure what you want to finish that with, but yes, I appreciate your kind words, Charlie Prebs. The end, all of it. I agree 100%. Yeah, we all know it's Kelsey and Hill, no one else for him. Probably talk about McCole Hardman. It's true. It's sad. It's unfortunate. It's the case, though. It is. Doing an awesome job, man. Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate your guys' kind words. Look at you guys boosting the ego today. I appreciate it. Jalen Waddle, question mark. I don't know what you want out of that, Dewey Kaya, but what I mentioned on the show is that he was moved all over, played all 2 and 3 receiver sets in unique spots. We know the explosiveness he brings to the table. We didn't quite see it yet because the usage wasn't there, but he was on there. And I liked that stuff. I thought that was a positive, even though we didn't get the stats. I thought the fact that we saw him in the role we saw him in were big positives for him. All right, what do we got from Mr. Daniel Howland? How you feel, Gallup or Curtis Samuel? I would go Gallup. Before a couple weeks ago, I would have said Curtis any day of the week. But all the rage these days, Gallup's moving in, and he's out, he's making plays. We had RJ Ochoa on. He said the chemistry between Gallup and Dak has always been the best of any receiver with Dak on that team. And now that the usage might match that, I think the upside with Gallup's astronomical. Plus, he's playing for a contract. Give me all that. So able to get Marshall in one of my dynasty leagues. Hope he's as good as he looks. He looks so good, Michael, doesn't he? Schneider, like unbelievable. I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. Oh, and just for the record, the end, all of it. Preble agrees with me. You blow it all. You go get him. Go get him. Daniel Howland, JT or Kamara, 1 point PPR. Full point, I got to go Kamara. I think most settings I'm going to go Kamara. I love JT like the player. Don't love Frank Reich, the coach. I still get a little queasy thinking about Jordan Wilkins last year. JT didn't take off till Wilkins got hurt. They've already said he's earned the right to be the guy and get all that. I'm taking to believe it when I see it approach with JT. I don't know. We got Keelan Cole Sr. instead. It's a platinum 14-team league, 1 QB, 2. He dropped Jamar Chase for Keelan Cole. The end. Are you kidding me? Blow all of it to go get your guy, for sure. What up, well, Denny Jennings, my man? So good to see you. Denny, I sent you a message. I don't know if you saw it yet, but we want to feature you in a video, given that story we had from you last year. So if you're willing, check your DMs. Let me know if you got that. It's from Vic Trakoff's my real name, if anybody didn't know that. It's so good to see you, though, man. The original Wolfpack. This is the best part of the year when, like, people finally are waking up to fantasy again. I've been doing these streams for, like, months. And I love my, of course, you know, all you Mitch Chavez and Tunes and all you guys that show up for everything. Love that. You guys get the extra tip of the cap. But there is the OG Wolfpack members, too, that don't come out till the most sane humans usually do. And it's so good to see you guys again. Like, it's just nice. Not downplaying again by the regulars. You guys are the best, but still. All right, you got to break the bank, says the end. Yes, that's the strategy, brother. Third pick in my draft this weekend. Who would you take with that pick, half PPR? I would say I got to go. It's half PPR. I got to go Henry. Henry or Cook, whichever one falls to you. If it's full PPR, that's where it gets a little tricky, right, with Henry. But in a half setting, I'm not going to overreact. He was the RB3 in full PPR last year. Never mind RB2 and that. I'm still a little nervous at Kamara up there. I think Zeke's looking great, but I got to go with the King. I like the third spot because of that. You're welcome to a call. What's your opinion on Fields compared to Lance? So I started the show with that, Joy, so I'm not going to go as long into that. Rewind and watch the beginning. But I prefer, personally, Trey, even though I agree with you, Fields does have the better chance of starting sooner. And he looked so good. I love them both. I again, want to not hedge, but I'm not leaving a draft without getting at least one of these guys. And if I do, I'm going to feel upset about it. Because I think both could genuinely be season winners, at least getting one of them, for sure. If I had to put my hitch my wagon to one, it's Lance because of the weapons. Yak monsters all around him. The play caller in Kyle Shanahan, I have more faith in than I do Matt Nagy. And I love their playoff schedule. Titans, Falcons, Bengals, and Texans from weeks 14 to 17 in some order. That's not the exact order it is, but for the worst defenses, that is true. So I like that. I'm going to go with Trey Lance because I just think he just in the gut feels like he's the next Mahomes to me. And Fields is really just about that level too. As you point out, he racked up 18 fantasy points in a quarter of play. So he's got upside, no doubt. I would go Lance if it's one or the other, though. Appreciate you working OT, Wolf. Oh, man, I appreciate you being here twice, Mohammed. I got to do OT for you guys in the busiest time. I'm going to be back to school, and I can't put in this much effort and this much work once I'm back to teaching. So, this is the time. I love it. Javante is the truth. I think that's been I like to see a lot of the guys that, Charlie, great eye for talent. Tim Gray, great eye for talent. Myself, great eye for talent. A lot of us are coming in here saying we love Javonte. I totally agree. He's the truth. My man, Upper Hand Fantasy on IG messaged me right after. Like, this guy's looking like Dalvin the way he's moving. He is the absolute truth, guys. It might take a couple weeks for him to become that full-time starter, but once it happens, you're getting yourself an RB1. If you can get like 2 running backs and Javonte around 5'6", and like have 2 guys that can be steady for you, a nice little like flex receiver till he takes off, he's going to go down the stretch as a monster. Alrighty, guys. Well, that's it, Wolfpack. I greatly appreciate you guys being here. Some of you guys showing up. I've been here on live 3 times today, and I've seen some of you guys for all 3. That's why I fucking love you. That's why I do this. I really, really appreciate it, Wolfpack. You can find me at RotoStreetWolf on Twitter. All our content at RotoStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed fantasy wolves for these updated rankings, for all the breaking news that CJ does such a good job, and all our other writers tracking and giving you those stock watch updates on everything. Anything you need, guys, send me that message. I'm going to do my best to get some custom mock drafts, and I know some people have their drafts really coming up fast. And as you guys can see, I am drowning in interviews in the best way. I don't want to ever sound like I'm complaining. This is the best work. It's so much fun. But I have all these beat writers coming on, so it's awesome. But, a few people have offered to pay for mock drafts, and you want to Venmo me a quick little bill, I could probably squeeze it in for you, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the free series this year, guys, and I'm so sorry about it. We're just gotten busier, and it's great busy. But if you do really want those mock drafts beforehand, shoot me a message. We can figure out something fair to get those in for you guys, because I still want to make sure I want to be mad at the people as much as possible, but we got so many good things coming in here. It's tough to squeeze it all in. So, guys, thank you so much for checking everything out. In a world full of fantasy sheep, be the wolf.